Okay, so this is a public stream, guys. So, but I'll keep this channel open so I can discuss with you guys. And
A public stream.
I am putting it.
I guess I'll put studying on a hold because I like drawing more.
Understandable.
Krita.
All right.
Krita.
There you go. So you guys should be able to access that now. Let me know. Just confirm that you can hear me. You may want to mute me here on Discord. But I'll be able to hear you, and if you have questions, I can answer them. So just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen and can hear you. There's a little bit of a delay, but it's all good.
Okay, so you might want to mute me here on Discord, but I mean, it's up to you. Mute me on one or the other, right? And all right, so here we go. So here I am in Krita. I used to use Photoshop for this kind of stuff primarily, but I found that Krita is very, very capable. So I'm gonna basically show how to do a hand painted texture, and I'll also make it a tiling texture. So I'm gonna just go for one of Krita's presets. So I'm gonna go for a custom document here. Actually, no, I'll go to texture template. We can go for like a 1K, which is 1024 by 1024. I'm gonna go for a 2K just so I have a little bit more resolution to work with. I can always scale down afterwards. So we'll go with that. So if you're in Photoshop, you could just make your own document. And then I'm gonna grab some reference. So I have a few different references here. I'm gonna open up PureRef, which is a little app that allows you to dock your reference images. So I have a Pinterest where I like just collect images that I like. So I really like this texture. So what I like about this for hand paint especially is in a hand painted texture you want to suggest like as much of the light and shadow as you can. So things I want to pull out are, see on the edges, these corners, these lifted corners, there's a slight highlight. I want to make sure I capture that. Here we have this kind of darker gray, right? Mm-hmm. And then this other dark gray, kind of where this the edge kind of dives down. But then on the on this corner that's kind of protruding out here, we have like a much lighter value. And then we have an abrupt kind of transition between kind of a lighter value and a very dark value because we have a shadow coming into contact with a lifted form. We get a little bit more of that here. So a lot of the hand paint stuff will come from like a decent enough foundation in terms of just basic rendering. Choosing a light source and then kind of going from there. So I'm just gonna grab a couple other images here. This one's good, just for reference, and this is like me not having any particular kind of goal in mind, but I just find these images very, very interesting to look at. So let's see if I can find another. This one's good. All right.
Just a quick question, Gavin. What are you searching for when you're actually trying to find these textures?
Oh, I'm on Pinterest. So go on Pinterest and just look up like textures. And generally speaking, what will happen is once you find one thing that you like and you click on it, it'll show you more similar things. And then you kind of can go down that rabbit hole of like finding images that that you think will work well.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm definitely now going down that rabbit hole, and I'm seeing, oh, these are cool. I like this kind of thing. All right, maybe one or two more. it's amazing when you start to see like what people are doing with textures, and
Yeah.
Yeah, people have some pretty amazing work.
yeah. Like I can imagine this could be the shingles on your roof, right? I don't know how practical it is, but I just love to see
Like a
this
pretty
kind of
crazy
stuff
design.
in an
I'd love that.
actual kind of house construction, or something I walk by on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so anyways, I have my
Imagine in
reference
the
here.
garden.
Sorry?
I can kind of imagine it all in a garden sort of thing.
Definitely,
Very
yeah,
organic
like
shapes.
looking down on this, and maybe water and kind of So if people are listening to my stream, they're not gonna probably. I don't know if they'll hear my audio. I don't know if they'll hear you guys talking. So just so you know, I don't know. I haven't checked. They may hear you guys talking. Are you guys okay with like potentially being on this recording? Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna actually turn off my camera here, just so I can get up close to the screen. All right. So a couple of brushes that we need. We need a brush that is kind of like gives us a kind of a cut line. Doesn't have much opacity dynamics on it, so it's basically just a fully opaque, but it just has thick to thin variation depending on how hard or soft you press. And then we also want a brush that is going to give us it's not going to change much in terms of thick to thin, but it will change in terms of opacity depending on how hard we press. So I could just go up here, actually in Krita. I am still getting used to Krita. If we go to here, brush presets, I should be able to find the brushes that I want. So let's try this brush for our, no, I don't like that. Yeah, something like this for our opaque to transparent. Okay, so generally speaking, we can map things out with this brush to start things out. So I want to choose which of these I want to emulate. They're all neat. I like a lot of what I see in this one, and I like these two a lot. So I'll just zoom in here. So I think I'll go with like maybe a pattern like this, but with a treatment more like this. So so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to lay down a dark value to get the black here that exists behind this pattern. And I'm actually going to turn on wrapping mode. So I'm going to go to edit, or is it view? No, view, and wraparound mode. You'll see there's also a hotkey here, Shift W, which I can press. And this will basically just allow me to paint in a way that is entirely seamless. I'm not 100% sure if this is the brush that I want in reality. Let's see what else we have. I'm gonna try out one of these brushes. So this one's got a little bit more texture to it. It's a little maybe stylized. I don't know how well this is gonna hold up, but I'll start with it. I enjoy how the paint comes out a little bit more easily versus the previous one I had. I could try going back to the other one actually and just seeing maybe if I change the parameters. So if I select this one and I go up to my parameters here, I'm going to click on opacity, pressure, maybe adjust that curve a little bit. Now this thing is going to get in my way. I'm just going to put this on the other screen. Alright. So I'm just going to check to see if, yeah, this, there's a built-in transparency to this brush that I'm not feeling. Like, no matter how hard I press, you see I can't get fully opaque. So that's a problem. So let me see what my settings are here. Oh, here, the high is set to 48%. So, oh no, maybe if we move this over. Let's hit the flow. Okay, so we don't have any flow parameters set. Turn this on too. Test this out. I think that's good now. Yeah, so I had to enable the flow pressure. And even then, I find that it's a little on the, I have to push pretty hard, which is okay. Okay, so I'm going to save this. So all I've done is adjusted my opacity parameters, so I have a bit of a more aggressive curve here, and then same thing for the flow. Alright, cool. So there I can push lightly, get a transparent, fairly transparent stroke, or I can press harder and get something more opaque. So that's, generally speaking, what I want. So I'm just going to basically go in here and block out all of this. I don't want it to be completely black. I do like to have a little bit of a variation. It just makes it a little bit more visually interesting. It gives me like a natural kind of pattern or basis to kind of go from. Alright, I'm going to make a new layer, and on this layer I will start bringing in some of that pattern. So I'll go with a lighter value here, and this was very kind of like wavy, sweepy, so I have to be careful here with the scaling of this, but whoops, my monitor is falling. There we go. Okay, so I have something like that. And so this is just me mapping it out. And then really it's just a matter of kind of going back in and kind of picking out some of these values and then continuously refining the form. So what I'm imagining is, imagine if the light source was mainly shining directly onto the surface, or maybe slightly coming from above. Then any part of the surface that is the form that's pointing upwards will catch more light. So I can go with a slightly lighter value here. So I can imagine these areas might receive a little bit more light. Okay, and it's kind of important to just stay with it for a little while, even if it's not looking good yet. And now at this point, I feel like the pressure is a little too heavy-handed, so I'm just going to pull this back. Okay, so I have my flow and opacity. Let's see. Okay, so I have just a little bit more control, so I can get more in between values a little more easily. So I'm picking off my canvas. I'm choosing the dark values and choosing the light values, and then I'm just painting one into the other. Trying to imagine a form here where, for this small part, for example, the top part is receiving a little bit more light, and then the bottom part is receiving less. This part's kind of turning, maybe. And then with the other brush, the more cut line brush, so I can probably use this brush too. I'll just make it smaller. And getting some weird artifacts here. So that is something I haven't experienced. So I'm getting some weird kind of see it sometimes when I stroke the. Takes a moment for it to show up properly. But basically what I'm doing is just kind of highlighting the edges. So this is a lifted edge. This would be like a lifted edge. Here, we probably have one something like this as well. So guys, let me know if this all makes sense so far.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
sort of understanding it.
There's a little bit of I'm trying right now to figure out like what you've changed about the brushes.
Okay.
'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
haven't
So,
actually.
so you can just go to the brush, and I didn't change anything about the tip. So I'll show you which preset I'm working off of. There's one that looks like a Wacom stylus. So it's this one here. I use that as my basis. And then what I did is I went to my settings here. And then in the opacity parameter, I make sure enable pen settings was clicked on. And then this was already enabled. Pen pressure was already enabled. So I've just adjusted that curve slightly. And then I also had to turn on flow. And I had to enable that one. That one wasn't on by default.
Okay. So flow, strength, and opacity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So I'm just going to continue with this. Okay, and then just like here, anything that's kind of above that line, this cut line that I've put in is going to be a little bit more lit, and anything below is going to be kind of starting to dip into shadow. So here's the part where I need to kind of go in and tighten things up, clean things up, and get it all working nicely. But there's a few spots where I didn't get that cut line in yet. Here. And here. And I can do this as well. So now I'm just going to try to be as consistent as possible and try to, again, get that light dark relationship going. Managing my values at the same time, basically aiming to make sure the top side is lighter than the bottom side, but not as light as this highlighted part. And the other thing I'm thinking is, as it kind of falls deeper and deeper into this this valley, these valleys that I have here, it should get darker and darker as well. So here's like where you have to be a little bit more careful about like how you capture the subtleties. Going to turn off my wrapping momentarily, just so I can kind of make more sense of what I actually have here. I just continue going through. Okay, down here in the valley, let's make it a little bit cleaner. The silhouette. And here, these parts here are kind of crucial, like these rounded parts, because I want to get that kind of gradual transition from lit to shadow going. I'll have to decide in here like what kind of treatment I want to have on this part. And on my reference too, I can't quite see it, but I also have like kind of like these secondary lines. So like within each of these shapes, there's like kind of this next form. It's kind of like got a neat kind of repetitive aspect. So I'd want to select this again and just kind of pull out these other highlights as well. Like so. And another thing that exists on my reference is there are these interesting borders. Oops. So here I can take just that darker value and then just kind of paint a break in the form in here, I'll just imagine this is kind of a flattened area just dropping off like so, and then we'll pick up the highlight here now as well. We'll have to. Okay, and then from here it's really just a matter of how clean can I render these forms. And there's a, you know, different people will kind of go to a different level of polish, and some people will keep this stuff fairly rough, and some people will like tighten it up a lot more. It's really somewhat subjective, right? Then we can put our wrapping back on just to see where this is leading us. And one other thing that we can always do, and I do recommend it, is to harmonize things. So sometimes pull things back, right? So if I were to, oops, get my brush back, take a mid value, make it this brush big, I just lightly paint over top of everything. You see how it narrows the value range that I had here, and then I can go back in and emphasize what I want to be emphasized. So I can go back in with a dark here, and then say I don't want all of it to be so dark, just certain spots. Okay, we can continue to kind of work back and forth, kind of pulling out and defining things, and then kind of going back in and harmonizing things some more. Okay, and in here, subtlety is the key. We want to kind of get some of these areas to read a little bit darker. Every now and then you want to just turn off your wrapping mode, just so you can kind of get a better sense of where you actually are. It's easy to kind of let your tile end up in the bottom corner, in which case it's hard to move around. Alright, so let's go back in with our lighter color now as well. And then just start pulling back out some of these highlights. One thing you'll want to do is don't make the highlight even throughout. You want to kind of pick and choose which edges will receive, or which parts of the edges will receive like more of that value. Because if you put it like consistently even throughout, it kind of deadens it. It detracts from kind of the appearance that you're aiming for. Okay, and then ultimately I will want to go in and kind of re-establish the planes. Okay, so the lit side and the shadow side of each of these forms that I'm painting. Alright, so I'm trying to get to the point here where I have all of my highlights kind of spoken to. And you can see it's kind of a lost and found line. Now for this part, you may want to use a softer brush, like instead of a hard edge brush, having like a softer edge. But it's not necessary. So here I'm just re-establishing those planes, darkening the parts that are facing down. And I just kind of zoom out, see if it looks like a form or if it's just like, you know, whether or not it's reading properly. I may or may not retain those those cut lines. It's going to be a lot to integrate, so we'll see. But this form here is starting to read in a way that works a bit better. Again, I'm just going back in even with my dark again. Okay, and then ultimately I want to go in with the highlighted color, or the highlight side as well, and just kind of get that spoken to, just to really clearly define the top bottom planes. Okay, let's bring back our thing here. So you'll want to see, I want to get the similar treatment throughout the rest of these different parts as well. And then I can, once I have like a solid base in place, I can start doing some fun stuff, like speaking to the form a little bit better. Whoops. Or in different ways. I can, like I was doing before, I can add in kind of extra detail. I could make these areas a little flatter, these lifted parts a little flatter. So I could add a little bit of extra kind of variation into it, just using, again, light and dark. To help mix things up. And that's basically it. So I'm just going to continue with this, and probably easier way that I could do this, and I might kind of explore that. And yeah, let's just experiment with an easier way. What I'll do is I'll use my lasso tool, my Marquee Select tool here, like this. I'll just make a marquee selection on kind of these parts. And then if I get a brush that has a softer edge, or if I change my brush here, again, not something I know how to do easily here in Krita. Brush tip, fade, there we go. Okay, we'll go with that. And then I can basically paint with this lighter color into here. Get like a much bigger stroke. Do it faster. I always forget how to deselect. Control Shift A to deselect that. Okay, so I basically could go through and continue to do the same for each of these areas that I want to receive light. I can also experiment with using the gradients tool. Darken in here just slightly because it's not facing up quite as much as the other parts. And I want it to be lighter the closer it is to the edge there. For these guys, I'm just going to go ahead and just remove what I was kind of putting in there. And up top here as well. So here I want to match this value in here to that, right? Because it's also facing downwards. And I might have a bit of a highlight going like this. At this kind of pronounced bend in the form. This will catch more light as well. That might be a little too much. There's also something called ambient occlusion where as things get closer together, forms get closer together, less light can kind of get in there, so things generally get a little darker in these kind of cavities. So I could kind of automatically darken these cavities without worrying about it looking wrong. Okay, just making sure I'm speaking to all of it. All right. And now I'll just finish off the rest of these highlights. Press Shift W here. Get my Marquee Selection. Let's see if this works with the mask turned on, or with the wrapping turned on, I should say. So again, just the lit sides here I'm trying to capture. Some of them I've done already. It's this part. Shape selection does not fully support wraparound mode. Okay, so we'll see if this actually works. It might not. Let's see. Okay, big brush. Yeah, so I could see that it is definitely not. It's not working there. So we'll just go like this. We'll clean it up after. So far, so good?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, just kind of following along and observing.
Okay. There might be, I chose kind of like a complex form to work with. So if you're using like something simpler, like it's like some kind of tile on the ground, it's going to be a little simpler, I think.
Yeah.
But I think this is a decent example. So
yeah, the way you're showing us now, like how you're kind of like creating those different like shapes just using different shades of like light and dark, it actually helps a lot. It gives a much better idea in terms of how you should approach it.
Okay, perfect.
Even if it is a little bit complex.
Now there should be a way to hide the selection. Control H, yeah, okay. Same as in Photoshop. I'm just going to turn on my wrap mode here. Because I did my selection in regular mode, it looks like that has saved me a little bit. This just helps ensure that I have that consistency throughout. That I'm not treating one area differently from another area. And Okay, so I've dropped my selection here. Okay, and then I can do any final touches or anything like that. One thing I might do is just play with my levels. So I might go to filter, adjust, levels, and actually what I'll do is I'll just reduce the range here. Okay, and I'll do it again. Adjust levels, and so I have a much narrower value range here, so now I can kind of go in and say, you know, make this part black, make all this gray, so I'm just again trying to harmonize things slightly, trying to just make those really kind of small parts of it black. Okay. And then I think I've like basically done a few times now, but I do find like sometimes when I go back and forth and I harmonize and then I kind of pick things out, I like the results. So that's kind of what I'm just doing one last time.
All right.
And that is effectively it. I'll probably just continue here for a bit, but if there's any questions, let me know. And other than that, I'll just keep plugging away for a bit.
All right.
I did have a question.
Yep.
Well, follow it. I noticed. So for hand painting, you don't use any like layer modes or anything. Is it all in one layer and you just
don't have to, but generally speaking, that is oftentimes that is the approach. Yeah, if you're unsure of something, you put on a new layer. So this part I'm putting on a new layer. But once you're kind of happy with it, then you would generally merge it down. But it's totally up to you. You know how you get the results. It's not a bad idea though to kind of just paint directly. Learn to paint directly in these programs like Photoshop and Krita, because it opens a lot of doors and you kind of it frees you up because when you break something, you don't like it, you can kind of just paint over top of it with opaque paint. Right? So instead of erasing something, I just basically would say, oh, I want a division here, right? Or a couple of lines here, and it would look like that. So you can kind of do those kinds of things. Right, and then you sample off your canvas and kind of paint in your new forms like so. So it's not the only way to do it, but I find that it is a very kind of effective way to kind of do this kind of stuff. Definitely something you want to kind of try out, get familiar with it. I find it just makes the whole process, at least for me, a lot more streamlined and enjoyable. I don't get caught up in multiple layers, and I don't have to worry about, I have to make sure that this works, and I can't change this because I have something on another layer, kind of thing. You just kind of make your adjustments on the fly as you see fit, and I find that is very liberating. I'm going to start going a little faster, rely less on kind of being precise here. So I'm going to use this as my kind of foundation, but then I'll kind of come in here with some value tweaks. Further describe form. And then I'll probably show how I would add color as well.
All right.
But yeah, so here's an interesting kind of pattern. Let's break it up some more. And I'm finally reaching a point where I kind of feel like I can ad lib. I have like enough of a base, and now I'm just kind of trying to have fun, and maybe further speaking to some of the subtleties and differences in the form. So trying to show like which parts might be like nestled underneath another part. So one part might be lifted or raised. Could kind of do other things, cool things like paint over top, maybe have a shadow cast right from this form as it runs across from here to here. Let's support that with texture. Probably not something I want to do, but something I could do. But the idea is try things out. You can paint over it. If you're unsure about a change that you want to make, again, do it on a different layer. When you're happy with it, if you feel happy with it, just merge it back down onto the layer you're working on. So this is a destructive way of working. It's not a non-destructive workflow that I'm proposing here, but it is a slightly more intuitive, organic. It's almost as though you're treating the computer as like your oil painting or something. And I remember for me,
it's very traditional.
Yeah, it was a big breakthrough when I kind of learned that you could use Photoshop this way. I was like, what? People do this? And that was kind of like my path to kind of understanding how to do digital painting, because I wasn't too precious with each of my drawings and stuff like that. I was just gonna kind of go in and paint over something if I needed to, and it helped me kind of kind of helped me kind of become more of an editor, right? So I can kind of go in and tweak and refine and adjust, and it's very liberating. Okay, so I'm going to put a few more of these lines. Just want to see if I made this a zigzag line, what that might look like. But you see how I can kind of like start having fun with this and cutting out slightly different shapes. Right, and I could even make one of these shapes, say, a different color. So this is where I'm starting to get into a bit of a vibe. Okay, and add some maybe smaller flourishes and details. Some of it may or may not hold up well, but some of it might, and I can speak to the different local values and different colors and things like that. So let's get some kind of a blue form here going. Okay, and this is going to follow like all the same form logic as I've established elsewhere. And I will have to go in and just maybe speak to how this form is delineated from the areas adjacent to it. Again, going with our highlight colors. Okay, we want a nice highlight on this blue as well. Okay, I don't know if I'm really feeling this or not. Not really feeling it, I'm gonna paint it out. So this is what I do, is like I just take the surrounding color or value and I could just paint right over top. And I don't know if I really mind it. I think that blue though I wasn't a fan of, so I could probably just make it a regular form. This is kind of bringing back in some of what I had in that reference where it had like sub paneling and all these kinds of things. And then subtleties, so I could say that this is flat, right, just by making it a little bit, having a darker channel in there. And then coming in with a lighter value here to kind of pull that out. And that's effectively it, guys. So, you just kind of revisit your reference. You'll ideally have some kind of idea of what done looks like. Work towards that. And don't overdo it. Stop when it says what you want it to say. And then try putting it in your game.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah.
Could I ask one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
So you talked a bit about color because you were doing the blue
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
pink. But I was just wondering, so would you repaint over everything with the new color and just like sample which is highlights, which is the shadow kind of thing, or would you like how would you approach making everything
In color.
color?
So for something like
versus-
this,
yeah,
I probably
versus adding that.
I probably wouldn't do that. I could. It's an option, but I'd probably just do an overlay layer or a color layer or something like that. So I guess I'll show you what that could look like. And I didn't want to put too much detail in this because it's a tiling texture, like presumably for like a background, so it's gonna probably be repeated. And so if you have too much like crazy little details and all these things happening, it'll just be too distracting, right? In a situation like that. But once we do have a base, we can go in and add like further details and things like this. And it's almost to the point where I can say dark means pushed away and light means lifted. Kind of get these extra forms going. Okay, so let's add some color. I'm just going to go on a layer above. Just see if I can play with the values, the overall values. Just block out a form and imagine maybe this chunk is like has a slightly different treatment than everything else. You know what? Sorry, I will get to color in a moment, but let's break this up. Let's add some like discoloration and imperfections here as well, just by taking like a darker color and kind of splotching this up a little bit. And then we want each of these little kind of divots to kind of follow as much as possible that same kind of light dark relationship that we've established. So you kind of, these start to read as depressed little kind of like areas pushed into the form. You could even pull out really micro highlights on these as well. But anyway, so let's throw in some color. So I'm going to go onto a new layer. And on this new layer, I will just choose, say, a color. Let's set the layer style to, let's try color. So you see, it's kind of, it's not the greatest. It kind of looks like a kind of a tinted black and white drawing. I'm gonna try. And I don't use Krita enough to fully speak to what's gonna do what, but. Is there a hard light? What? There's a lot of options here. So I imagine I can get something like a hard light option, but they really expose a lot of the kind of the nuts and bolts here for us. So for our purposes, we'll just go with let's go with color.
There was a hard light in the lighting section.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay. I guess that works. Yeah, so that's, you see how it doesn't kind of mess up the values quite as much. We kind of keep our values while also getting that color. And then what I'd do is I'd paint my other colors as well. I'd splotch it up on this layer. Okay, and you may choose, like, your shadow side maybe has a certain hue. So here I'm going for more of a gray, right, to keep it cooler, relatively speaking to the orange side or the redder side. Okay. And that orange I use, or that yellow or whatever it was, is kind of problematic. So I'm just going to switch from hard light here back to, is it normal mode? Normal. So I can kind of get a sense of what colors I used and what works. Oh, you know what I did? What did I do? Oh no, I didn't. Oh, I'm good. So then I can basically choose the colors I like and just paint back into here. So for something like this, I'd probably approach it like something like that, but really it is going to be up to you. Let's go back to hard light. Okay, and then finally you might tweak the opacity here, and almost always invariably I'll go back in on a normal layer at the very end and kind of paint any final kind of color treatment or tweaks or changes that I think are necessary. Maybe go back in with my white, pull those back out, some of these lighter highlights. So the thing with hand paint, it's not like a press one button and it's done kind of thing. It's like it is a labor of love, so to speak, and
yeah,
it's an iterative process.
Yeah, it gradually kind of comes out, but you just have to kind of stick with it and pay attention, focus on the details, But start big. Start with like a big design, big shapes, big idea that you're happy with, and then kind of gradually whittle it down to the smaller details. But yeah, that's kind of that's how I would approach it.
All right.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps, guys.
It definitely helped a lot. Gives me a better idea just to kind of how you can create more, I guess, or like make things
You get a lot of
feel
fake
more
detail.
3D. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need the geometry. You need the textures. The textures are the thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All you need
'Cause
is
when
a
you were
flat
just starting
panel,
off-
but you could turn it into anything.
Mm-hmm. Because when you were starting off with just the gray lines, I was like, I wonder where this is going. And then when you were actually shading it, I'm like, oh, like it looks like there's some more shape to it. I can tell where there's like dips and where something is elevated, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I thought that, yeah, it definitely gives a better insight. I've just kind of been like following along or just watching what you've been
Okay.
doing.
All right. Perfect. So try it out, and don't give yourselves a few cracks at it. Like don't give up too quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll definitely look good in your games. So I look forward to kind of seeing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because in your game especially, I think it'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. If we can manage to make it look nice,
Yeah.
then it'll definitely help us out.
And because it's a tiling texture that you might use for the floor or whatever, you get so much mileage out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So keep me posted. If you have something to show me next time, I'd happily take a look and kind of give you some feedback. But yeah, this looks like intestines or something, man. It's like weird looking now. But
I like it. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I like it.
what I can
I don't know
do
why
is
I
also
get like a hot metal too.
what's that?
I kind of get like a hot metal vibe. Like this
Interesting.
is like
Yeah.
like almost like infernal factory.
Mm.
Yeah. I love the one section you have where it's like a very dark gray and then it switches back to the two like lighter grays.
Right.
I that is like it stands out. I love that part. Like
Okay.
I find that part to be really clean.
Okay, cool. I think the key
Yeah.
would be look at it in Engine and see, how does this turn out? How does this like shape up and kind of let
Yeah,
that be a final
definitely.
evaluation. But you can always go in with adjustment layers and continually tweak things and refine things. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. All right, guys. So I'll probably wrap here, but any questions, let me know. I want to keep going, actually. It's fun.
I mean, yeah, now you've created something pretty cool.
Yeah.
The one question
Yeah.
I do have though, in terms of that hard light layer you created, would you merge that into the other layer where you actually were like outside of the hard light, like where you were creating all the different like shading?
Yeah, I think eventually, like if I was happy with it, I could merge it down. If I wasn't, or if I was unsure, or, if I was wanting to be prepared for further revisions and tweaks, I might leave it intact. The layer structure. What I would probably do is save a version. And that's probably a good practice. Anytime you are going to merge down, just save a version so that you can always get back to the raw version
Right.
to edit if necessary. But yeah, what I would do is basically at some point take all of these, maybe all of them, and how do I merge this? I guess I'll try Control E.
Control E. Yep.
There you go. Yeah, and then just merge it, and then I have that as a basis. That way, any adjustment stuff I can do. Man, I feel almost comfortable in this program, but I'm not quite there. So filter layer, color balance. Let's try that. So here I can go to color balance, right, and kind of do some more tweaks, get something a little more stylized. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's kind of interesting actually. And then yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with this, guys. I'll just keep streaming. If you guys want to stick around, you're welcome to. Ooh, I've gone an hour and a half. Holy smokes!
Yep, time flies.
Wow, I didn't know it was that long. Yeah, so feel free to stick around. I'd like to get it to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this. But yeah, I have no idea what I'd ever do with it. But
Yeah. Just kind of something to
Maybe
look at.
you could give it to us, and we could use it.
I don't know if that's allowed.
I
That would be
don't
cool
know,
though. I'd like to work on games with you guys.
That would be cool.
Maybe in the summertime or something.
Mm-hmm. Style is very fitting for a game, I would say, just
Yeah.
based off what it is. I love the little 110, like the 110, and then just the cracks in between whatever this is. I don't know how to describe it, but like I love like the little details you're adding. It's
Yeah.
really kind of making it come out.
That's what kind of brings it to life in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because up until adding the details and the little nuances, it's kind of like, okay, it's just a thing, right?
Right.
But you want to kind of set the stage for that, so you want to gradually work up to adding the details and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so don't feel obligated to stick around, guys. You're welcome to, of course. But yeah, I'll be here for a little bit, and so if you have any questions, just feel free to ask.
All right. Well, for now, I will be heading out just because we have something to get to soon. But
Okay.
this has definitely
Yeah.
helped us out a lot.
Okay.
Like I have a bunch of ideas now in terms of how we can approach this. So yeah, this has definitely been a huge help.
Okay, perfect. Glad to hear it. And this will be available, so if you want to come back to it, it's there. So,
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Definitely, that would
Okay.
be fantastic.
all right, guys, have fun then. Good luck.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for the help, Gavin.
No
Take care.
problem. See you guys. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'm gonna close this out.